Good morning, YouTube and BookTube. This is Johnny. It is October the 13th, 2018. It is a Saturday morning, 7:06 here in Southwest Michigan. I made a video last night, and it was just very brief. It's only like 4 minutes, and I just showed you all these used books. And some people might have thought, well, I thought you were de-hauling. Why'd you go out and buy a bunch of well, you know, they're all used books. I mean, I probably spent on all those books maybe $15. Because one of those, that art book I got at the Book Nook yesterday, which was titled, and I didn't bring it up here, I took the books down the lower level. It was called Carl W. Peters, American Scene Painter from Rochester to Rockport, Art History Biography by Richard H. Love. Now the reason why I bought that book is that I have seen the paintings of Carl W. Peters, but the book was very exhaustive and looking at this man's whole life, but also looking at what was going on in America in the art scene. And that's what fascinated about me. It's like I didn't bring the book up here, but if you looked at that book, the person who wrote it was exhaustive. And I always appreciate books like that. I can look at a book like that and I can see that this man really poured his heart and soul into it. And it was exhaustively researched and very authoritative, and it looked very fascinating. And I like looking at the lives of painters, not only their lives, but what was going around them in the art world. And this I know very little, if anything, of Carl W. Peters, but he had a very long career or life of scene painters, you know, like there in Rochester and Rockport. And I should have brought the book up here this morning to show you why I thought this book was worth spending $5 for. And I'm sure if that book was to be bought brand new, it'd probably cost at least $65. And it was just a good book, and I was interested in there. As I was looking through the book at the Book Nook, there are certain things in there about that I wanted to read more about, or to have the book so I could look at it. So every time the point of this video is that when I get a used book, it's not always an impulsive. I mean, there is a reason behind the book, why I get the book. Like I said, I took 18 boxes of used books to the library, and I still probably might take some more. But and when I went to the used books that I showed last night were from thrift stores I had not visited in several weeks. And the reason why I hadn't, I was out with my wife, and my wife said to me that day, well, I'm gonna go out and do errands, and I'll just drop you off at these thrift stores while I do my errands. And so I went along, but I wouldn't have gone to these thrift stores if my wife had not been in that area, because I am cutting back and getting used books. Now yesterday at the Book Nook, I bought that book I got that book, Carl W. Peters, American Scene Painter, and I got that book on the First World War. Well, the First World War to me is important because it's out of the First World War you have the birth of modernism. And that war affected the intellectual and spiritual life of not only Europe, but the United States. It's a pivotal time in literature, in art, in music is the First World War. In mechanized warfare, mechanized whole-scale slaughter. And it was, and I don't even think that Europe has ever really recovered from that devastation. Because right after First World War, you had the Second World War, and Europe is still suffering the effects of these wars, and so but yet I always find the First World War just an interesting how it affected the psychic of mankind, something like that. And then I bought that book, Plain Home Men, The Making of American Constitution. Well, that's American history, and this might sound kind of corny, but I do love America. Now I'm not a nationalist, but I do think America is a great nation, and it saddens me when I see things going on in America that tarnish what it stands for in the world. So and then that book, Two Americans, Truman, Eisenhower, and a Dangerous World by William Lee Miller. I got that at the Book Nook. The reason why I got this book, The Two Americans, Truman, Eisenhower, and a Dangerous World by William Lee Miller, is that I wanted to read, you know, when Truman took over, when FDR died, he had to make a lot of decisions, and one of the major decisions he had to make, Truman, not only him, but those who were his advisors, and of course Eisenhower was the commander-in-chief of the armed forces, is to bomb was it Nagasaki and that Hiroshima, and there's a whole section in here on that whole. Now I've always been kind of fascinated and wanted to know more about all that what was going on before the atomic bomb was dropped, and what was the reasons behind it, why did they do it, because they knew, maybe they didn't know fully the devastation that would be caused, but I'm just kind of curious to know the history behind it. And in this book he goes into that. You know, I thought about reading to you about this, what was really going on, but I like to know those kinds of things, and that's why I got this book. And plus, I collect books on Truman, Eisenhower, the Kennedys, Nixon, not so much Gerald L. Ford, who's really big here in Michigan because he comes from Grand Rapids, Michigan. And there's a Gerald L. Ford museum in Grand Rapids. I'm not really into Bushes or the Clintons or Obamas, but I'm more interested in the Kennedys and Nixon and Truman, Eisenhower, Roosevelt, those kinds of presidents. Now, and I did show you this book I got at a thrift store. It's called Stories of Life and Death from the American Family, Kennedys, edited by Clint Willis. Now, I didn't make clear when I showed this book that this is a bunch of it's kind of like it says, the Kennedy family for the past 50 years more has lived at the intersection of politics, history, sex, fashion, gossip, war, murder, and Hollywood. all elements of a good and gripping story. Kennedy's Stories of Life and Death from American Family collects 21 of the best stories about the Kennedys, who during the past century have shaped our public life while building the private lives charged with purpose and passion, lives far more interesting and exciting than decades of gossip columns have managed to convey. So in this you have 21 stories, and in this, one of the ones I wanted to read, for example, was, there's one in here, there's stories taken from the writings of Norman Mailer, and it's from Superman Comes to the Supermarket. There's Norman Mailer, and then there's one here, Norman Mailer, First Lady in Waiting. Then there's one here by Gore Vidal, The Holy Family, and another one taken from a book by Norman Mailer, Oswald, A Tale in American Mystery. So, when I was at the Book Nook yesterday, I put aside a book on the Kennedys, on John and Jacqueline Kennedy, and I'll probably show that in a future video. And that's why I got this, because you know, you can look at American history through a family like the Kennedys. Maybe some people today look at American history through the Bush family, and but I like looking at the Kennedys. I'm just kind of fascinated with that whole 60s thing. Of course, you have the assassination of President Kennedy and all of that history. So I find that very interesting, and that's why I got the book. So it's not like it was an impulsive thing. I mean, I have a whole stack of books on the Kennedys. Not only John Kennedy, but Robert Kennedy. and on Jacqueline Kennedy. Anyway, of course, she married that Greek billionaire, which skips my mind right now. So anyway, that's why I got the book. And I got this book at Africa's Child. What Africa's Child is, it's a thrift store, and all the money goes to drill wells in Africa. You know, so villages and people might have clean water. And my wife likes going there because she looks for clothes for our granddaughters and our grandson Jack. And I found this book, Botany of Desire, A Plant's Eye View of the World by Michael Pollan. Now, I got this book because this is one of the last books. I've been collecting his books the last year. His most recent book has been on BookTube about LSD, about psychedelics and their use in addiction, helping people get over addiction, things like that. But in this book, there's a big chapter on marijuana, the history of marijuana. And I have mentioned over the years I've been making videos that I collect books on drugs, psychedelics, marijuana, those kinds of things. And I wanted to, first of all, I wanted to complete my collection of Michael Pollan's books. There's one I don't have, and it's on roasting food, something like that, which I don't have, but I have the other ones. I thought I was showing the stack of his books that I've collected in the recent months. So that's why I got the book. It wasn't just an impulsive kind of thing. This is the botany, and he is really a good writer. I mean, he is very interesting. He's just a really good writer. And I wanted to read the chapter on marijuana. That's why I got the book. So every time I get a book, even though I've dehauled 18 boxes of books, it's not that I'm just going to stop getting used books or going to thrift stores. I am cutting back, and I don't want to get into the mess that I got into. And I'm still going to get rid of more books. I'm just kind of like cooling it. And one thing else I haven't mentioned Next Tuesday, we're having a guy come over here to look at building bookshelves, not only for my wife, but also from down in the lower level. And then once I get all these bookshelves built, I'm going to try to get rid of more books. Just kind of get our library down to a certain kind of collection of books and get rid of excess things. So yeah, we're having a guy come over this coming Tuesday who builds bookshelves. I've dehauled books. So even though that video last night kind of showed all these books, like I said, I hadn't gone to these thrift stores in a long time, and I don't plan to go there. I used to go to these thrift stores every week and come home with tons and tons of books, and I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to stick with around here. You know, there's Bibles to Mexico, there's Goodwill, there's Action House, and that's about it. And then there's the Book Nook, the library used bookstore. I could just get enough books out of the Book Nook, the library used bookstore, to make me, you know, completely happy. I mean, I get tons of books out of the Book Nook over the last 10 years I've been volunteering there. So I'm just making this video to say, no, I've not gone back to going crazy about stuffing the lower level with used books. No, I'm clearing out. I'm being selective. Now, I'm still buying books. I did mention in a comment this morning, I have books coming in November. A lot of pre-order books are coming out. I'm getting a used book. I'm getting a used book this today. I bought on the pleasure of reading, something like that. And I'm still buying Christian books. Those I will always buy because I'm a Christian and I need to. I don't go to church, so I need constant. I've got to feed myself spiritually. Like this morning, I got out to read The Rise of Reformed Systems, The Intellectual Heritage of William Ames by Jan van Vliet. And I've been reading this for a while and reading the marrow of theology. Now, the other morning when I showed this book, I made a kind of a blank statement, and I should qualify this. Now, I agree with William Ames when it comes to the doctrines of grace or basic Calvinism. Where I might disagree is on covenant theology, his view of the moral law. Well, I don't even like that word. The Torah, the Old Testament Torah, his view of sacraments. But when it comes to salvation, the work, those kinds of things, I am in agreement. So I just want to qualify that. You know, I have an appreciation for the theology of William Ames compared to what is out there right now in American evangelicalism. You can't go wrong with William Ames reading the marrow of theology. So I want to qualify that. So today is a Saturday. It's supposed to be kind of a fallish day here if I watch some college football. I should mow the lawn, rake leaves, but I don't know if I will. I might wait until next week. So yeah, so when I get a book like this or a book like this, it's not just something I do impulsively. There is reasons behind it. And that's why when I showed all those books last night, I could have spent an hour explaining why I got each of those books. It wasn't just, I just grabbed them. Like I said, I love America, not in the sense that I think that America is God's chosen nation. No. You know, I mean, God is I don't think America is a Christian nation. I don't think America is something special in God's eyes. But I do love America for what the ideals that it stands for. I know it has a very black history, America, but so does mankind. That's why Jesus Christ came to this world, to die for sinners. And I do think that we are in the last days of the American Empire, due to our decadence in our spiritual, I don't know what the word is, our spiritual declension. We need a revival. We need the outpouring of the Holy Spirit, not only on America, but on all the nations of the world. We all need to turn to Christ. The nations need to repent. But anyway, I'll just sign off. This is a Saturday morning. It's now 7:26 in the morning. I'm writing in my diary. I'm on page 840. I'm going to read some intellectual heritage of William Ames. I'm going to sign off now. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for watching my videos. I'm just another human being. I got a brain. I got a heart. So I'll sign off. Hoping you have a good weekend. Until next time, bye.